Hey everybody, I got a video here for you tonight. Now, this is kind of change of directions. I usually talk about the Old Testament when I talk about Bible stories and where they might have originated from. But there is one theory out there of where the Jesus story originated from that I find most interesting. I know some of you have heard this already, but I'm going to play a clip from Red Ice Radio where Ralph Ellis is going to explain his theory for you. And I find it more than interesting just because it's based on common sense, and there are so many connections between a royal family in Edessa, Turkey, and the actual biblical story of Jesus. And there are many connections, and I'm just going to have Ralph talk on this Red Ice Radio clip. But first, I just want to show you where Edessa is. And today it's called Urfa or Sanliurfa, and it is up here, and this is where it is in relation to Jerusalem. So I just wanted to show you that in case some of you are not familiar with ancient Edessa, and I wasn't familiar with this royal family at all. And they seem to be erased from history, and it seems to be on purpose. So I just think this whole theory of Ralph Ellis's is very interesting. I don't believe it 100%, but the more I listen to it, the more I like it. And I'm going to talk further about this at the end of this clip and how it connects to another upload that I made. And it makes the whole thing rather interesting as far as some real history being connected to the Jesus story. Now, when I upload stories on where I think these biblical stories originated from, I don't mean to demean anybody's religious beliefs. If they already ring true in your heart, then what I say should not matter whatsoever. And that is not the purpose of these videos. I'm just trying to find some true history and where these stories might have originated from, where the foundations of the stories came from. They were obviously changed and twisted a little and to fit the narrative of the Bible. But I'm going to have Ralph Ellis now talk about his theory. So I'm going to talk at the end of this clip, but here is Ralph Ellis from Red Ice Radio.
Josephus was having a joke with us. He was, I call him the the quicksilver-quilled historian, because everything to him was a bit of a joke. He was the master of everything. After Jerusalem was destroyed in AD 70, he was the master of everything because he was working for the Romans. He could do what he liked. He could destroy any text he liked. He could create any text he liked. He could create any history he liked. And he did so. And he did it from a Roman perspective. He was working for the Romans, remember. And the major event of that era was the Jewish Revolt. So here we have the emperor, and the emperor is now, this is after the revolt, and the emperor now is Emperor Vespasian. And Rome is pretty pissed off with Judea, basically, because it's nothing but a bag of trouble. There are revolts going on all the time, and the Jewish revolt was a major revolt within the Roman Empire. And of course, the empire doesn't like revolts because they have a habit of spreading. And so Rome wants the Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. And so they set about systematically preventing any further trouble in the eastern borders. Now, the trouble had been caused by the Edessan royal family, as I said before. But Josephus didn't want to admit that, because he now wants to distance this revolt from the perpetrators of the revolt. He's trying to prevent any further unrest in the Eastern Empire. So he never mentions the Edessans, even though they caused and prosecuted this revolt. He never mentions them. He calls them the Adiabenians instead. So in the books of Josephus, the people who started the Jewish revolt are King Izus of Adiabeni, and the person who was captured after the Jewish revolt was King Izus of Adiabeni. Of course, and then he has this wonderful little story where he relates that after the siege of Jerusalem, so Jerusalem was destroyed, the leaders of the revolt were captured. He goes off to Herodium, which is just south of Jerusalem. He comes back from Herodium, and he sees three of the leaders of the revolt being crucified in the Kidron Valley. But they are his previous compatriots, because you've got to remember that Josephus changed sides. He was on the rebel side, and then he changed side to the Romans. So these were previously his compatriots. So he made a petition to the governor of Jerusalem to take them down from the cross. And he did. He took them down from the cross. 2 of them died, but 1 survived. And of course, the leader of the revolt was called Izus, or as we would know him, Jesus, of course. And the person who took him down from the cross was called Josephus. Josephus of Arimathea, of course. So you can see where the story starts connecting up. And this is why Josephus never mentions the Adi-Beni royal family. Sorry, the Edessan royal family.
Edessa, yeah.
Because they were the leaders of the revolt. So what he's done is he's deleted Edessa from history. And he's deleted that royal family from history. So he calls them the Adiabenans, and he relocates them out in Iraq somewhere, when in fact they came from Edessa. And Edessa is, if you close your eyes and think about the Near East, if you go north of Aleppo and head up into sort of Turkey, you will come to a place called Sanliurfa. And Sanliurfa is Edessa. So it's just north of Syria. It used to be in the borders of ancient Syria. They call it Syria, but nowadays it's in Turkey nowadays. So yeah, this is what happened to this family. They were deleted from history intentionally, and so then we have to go and rediscover this royal family and see how they connect with the biblical story.
So, if I understand it correctly, Josephus does this because he wants to be true to history in one regard, but obviously he doesn't want to give credit to those who are really responsible for it. So he names them after a different region for some reason. What is the benefit with that?
Well, because Josephus is working for the Romans, and he doesn't want the rebels to have any fame for being rebels. I don't know how we could put that into a modern context, but if you can imagine a country that had a rebellion that attacked its neighbor or something, in order to quell that rebellion so it doesn't happen again in the future, you just delete that history, as it were, from history.
Well, that's very common if we look at
very,
history.
yeah. And so what he's done is he said, oh, it's nothing to do with these people over here. In fact, we're not going to mention these people over here at all. They just, they don't exist. It was a revolt that was caused by these people over here. There's something completely different. And of course, they're also conveniently outside the Roman Empire. You know, Arbela was outside the Roman Empire. It was nothing to do with Rome. So this was not a revolt that was caused by anyone that was in the Roman Empire. No. It was these people over here. So his amendment to history is pure Roman propaganda. And this was a propaganda 1-2 punch. So this is the historical record we're talking about. This is Josephus writing what he calls history. Okay, it's propaganda, but it's history. But the number 2 punch was he wrote exactly the same story with the same characters as a spiritual fantasy story, which was all peace and love and roses and turning the other cheek. And we call that story Christianity. So what I'm
Well, I just find that whole theory more than interesting. Number one, because I had never heard of this royal family from Edessa. That seemed to be very important. And number two, he makes some good connections between the foundations of the Jesus story and the foundations of the story of this royal family from Edessa, Turkey. Now, one other thing that I just cannot ignore is that I made a video a couple weeks ago, and it is entitled The Shroud of Turin and the Knights Templar, and there is actual documentation coming from the Templars that they had the Shroud of Turin, And I will leave the link for this video below. I'm not going to go into that whole theory, but it's not a theory, it's actual documented history. And you just have to put, look at what they say, and it's clear that they had the Shroud of Turin. Other people have talked about this. I've seen this on documentaries. I don't think this is a big secret. But where did the story of the Shroud come from? And it's, the Shroud is a very weird, interesting story. It seems to me that there was dating done on it, and it came back to be like 13th century. So it was kind of dismissed, and the people, writing the standard model history kind of said it was a hoax. But it seems to me that they did this testing on an area of the Shroud that was done, that there was repairs done in the 13th century or some time period, hundreds of years ago, and that could have flawed the test. And there's been other documentaries and other tests done on it that just make the whole story of it very strange, but there does seem to be an actual history of it, and I go over it in this video. And the Templars, when they invaded Constantinople, I believe around 1200, they grabbed, one of the artifacts they grabbed was the Shroud of Turin. Now, the Templars had a great secret from the church that the church found very threatening. But where was the Shroud? Where was it before it was in Constantinople when the Templars grabbed it? Well, it was in Edessa, Turkey, and there seems to be this strange myth on how it got there. But the true history of the Shroud, the actual documented history, starts in Edessa, Turkey. I will leave the link for this below my video. But this whole theory by Ralph Ellis, I find to be interesting. Once again, it's a possibility that I thought I'd put forward, and in case people hadn't heard it, I wanted to share it. But what makes it even more interesting is the Shroud of Turin comes from Edessa, Turkey. That's where the story originates from. So those are two things that you link together, and it becomes even more cool. So I just hope you thought this was interesting. Have a nice day.